Good day, everyone. I'm your host, Lee Judge, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Screen Pop Your Ticketing System, brought to you by Jacada. As a reminder, to honor the privacy of our attendees, only your name will appear in the attendee window. Our presenter today is Chris Dutoy, Executive Director of Product Marketing at Jacada. Today we will look at how to shorten call times by integrating your ticketing or CRM system to your ACD soft phone to quickly get a screen pop and while also adding ticket guidance. Following the presentation, there will be a question and answer session, so please feel free to type your questions into the Q&A window at any time. Also, as a note, once again, to honor the privacy of our attendees, only your name will appear in the attendee window. So let's begin. The presentation is all yours, Chris.
Great. Thank you, Lee, and good morning and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for joining this webinar. We're going to look today at automating that ticketing system and the process your agents go through when getting that incoming call to address a support ticket or really any other type of customer service call. Just by way of housekeeping quickly, it's going to be a fairly quick webinar so we can get you back on your busy days, but certainly we'll leave time for Q&A, and if you have any questions during the webinar, please go ahead and just enter them in the chat window, and we'll address all of those towards the end. So with that, let's get started on this. And to set the context of how we're going to approach this throughout this webinar and from a solution perspective, if we look at a typical customer service call and where you could potentially squeeze down those call times to reduce that average handle time, somewhat trivializing it, but there's really three segments. I can do something at the beginning of the call, I can do something during the call, and I can do something at the end of the call. Really three segments where I can try and squeeze those call times to get that savings and cost savings of reducing precious seconds off those calls. And the reason I've broken it down like this, acknowledging that it's a fairly trivial breakdown, but is we look at different solutions for squeezing that call time depending, which phase of the call we're doing. The start of the call is where we'll start the webinar, and we'll focus on that part first. And the solution set that you would utilize at the start of the call is automating that ticketing system by connecting it to your screen pop. And certainly we'll explore that in some depth here. You can then go during the call, where once that call is now underway, you can provide guidance for your agent to make sure that they're efficiently resolving that ticket. But by putting that guidance there, you're going to squeeze some time from the sort of quote-unquote during call process as well. And then, of course, there's the end of call where you might want to auto-disposition the systems, shorten your after-call work or ACW so you can get your agents back on another call quicker. But so really, we're going to focus on start of call and during call for this webinar, but the same technology will apply to the end of call place as well. So let's take a look at the start of call and what we can do there to squeeze those call times. And I'd like to talk about something called the Pareto Principle. And I know when I mention the Pareto Principle, many on this call will be saying they've never heard of the Pareto Principle, but you have probably heard of it. It's more commonly called the 80-20 rule. And we see this 80-20 rule appear often through all principles and systems that we deal with, both human processes and computer processes. And what the 80-20 rule tells us is that for many events, roughly 80% of the effects come from 20% of the causes. And I know that sounds like a mouthful, but for example, let's say, 80% of your sales are going to come from 20% of your clients. Or maybe, 80% of crimes are committed by 20% of the criminals. Or, even 80% of my mistakes will happen in the first 20% of this webinar. So if we get through that, we should be good. But how does that apply to a call? Really, the 80-20 rule strikes again. And what we're saying is that 80% of your call inefficiency is going to happen in that first 20% of the call. And that's not just because of complicated navigation, where you might have to navigate to the right screen when that call first comes in. It can also be because you don't provide enough information to the agents, because you don't have a single view of the customer, or you don't know whether the customer support contract is current. You just simply don't have enough information, and it requires a lot of navigation. So really you're going to find that 80% of that call efficiency is happening in that first 20% of the call. And that's why we talk about the start of the call. If you can actually drive some efficiency there, you're going to find a lot of savings simply by improving that efficiency, because that inefficiency at the start of the call really is costing you millions. And we'll look at the ROI in a minute. But to help put that into context, let's look at a typical inbound call. And obviously, this may vary, by industry and in your use case. But, typically the call is going to be received by the agent. And you likely have that screen pop today, whether you're using, Avaya or Genesys or Cisco or something homegrown. But you have a screen pop that might at most show, the customer phone number or an account ID or something of that nature. But that screen pop happens on the agent desktop. So what they do next is they're going to go to your ticketing system, assuming you're in a support sort of scenario here. They're going to open that ticketing system, and then they're going to try and find the information for the customer and navigate to the correct screen. Obviously, all of that takes time. Now, this is a highly trivialized diagram, because here's what commonly happens is the customer says, oh, I'm phoning about ticket number 1234. So the agent will fire up the ticketing system, retrieve ticket number 1234. From there, they can get the customer name. They probably alt-tab over to your CRM system. They use that name to get the customer's account ID. Then maybe they switch over to the billing system, and they use that account ID to make sure that this customer has the entitlements in terms of they're current on their support contract, what the SLA is behind that support, etc. And then they'll go back to the ticketing system, pull up that ticket, and start addressing the customer's inquiries. But as you can see, that's a lot of navigation across multiple systems. So it might be within one system or multiple systems, but you'll find there is this kind of initial triage that has to happen as that call comes in before the agent can really start talking to the customer in any kind of meaningful, productive way. And obviously, this inefficiency is causing long average handle times. And for those of you on the call, who are in the customer care division, we all know how we sort of live and die by these precious seconds of average handle time. And that is a lot of inefficiency right there at the start of the call. And it gives you a poor customer experience, and certainly other issues such as expensive call transfers. If that agent looks up the information and realizes the customer actually needs to talk to somebody else, and there's an internal transfer, and then that process happens from the beginning again, and just a lot of total time to resolve that customer's inquiry. So what we're really proposing to eliminate that inefficiency at the start of the call and is to eliminate that manual process of opening your ticket system and your CRM system and your billing system and that navigation to the correct screen. You want to automate that. So you really want to listen for the screen pop to occur on the desktop. And as it does, fire up the applications and stage them at the correct place so the agent can immediately start being productive on that call. And, from an ROI perspective, obviously that translates to big savings. For a 100-agent call center with a loaded agent cost of $20, a 20-second average handle time reduction equates to savings of roughly, close to $400,000. And obviously it's going to vary based on the complexity of your call types and your costs. But those seconds really add up. And many of those on the phone today, based on what you do, I can see that you know how much these seconds add up to. And obviously that's compounded, right? So once we get to starting at 500 agents, you're looking at close to $2 million that you can easily save by just introducing that efficiency at the start of the call. And that's really what we're proposing to do here. And I'm going to show you an example of how we've done that for one customer and give you a sense of the kind of savings you can see. So how do you do this? Well, it's what we call 1, 2, 3. Basically, we're going to listen for that screen pop to happen. So whether it's Genesys, Avaya, Cisco, or maybe even a homegrown telephony system, we're going to listen for that incoming call. And we can listen either through an API based on an actual incoming call, or we can monitor your agent's screen, if you will, and just wait for that pop, that little box that pops up and shows an incoming call. So we'll sit there in the background listening. We'll automate the retrieval, and then we'll navigate through your systems. So let's explore that in just a little more detail, listening for the screen pop. It really is, it's a piece of software that's going to monitor the desktop and just patiently sit there waiting for that screen pop to occur. And again, it will tie into your existing screen pop mechanism, so you don't need to replace what you're already using for your screen pop. We're just going to tie into your screen pop, and we're going to monitor that and wait for that screen pop to occur. Once that screen pop occurs, we can now start retrieving information. So we can take that customer phone number, perhaps, that came in on the screen pop, or do an account lookup. And just as I mentioned in my early example, we can go to the CRM system, get your account ID, go to the billing system with the account ID, look at your support contract, see if it's current, and then fire up the ticketing system and type in the account ID to bring up that customer's open support ticket. So we automate that entire process of navigating. From an agent experience, they literally see those screens almost fly by as we automate the process, and I'll show you what that looks like. And then, the step 3 is the navigate, because now we want to make sure that we go to the right screen of your ticketing system or even your CRM system, so the agent is not doing that cumbersome kind of navigation. And ticketing systems are fairly good at minimizing navigation, only because they understand the context of being used within a contact center. What we find mostly is with CRM systems, they're just not built for the real-time needs of the contact center, and you will find it's a very cumbersome, complex navigation sequence to get the most basic of customer information. It's really a sales and marketing tool, not really a customer care tool. So we find it more with CRM systems, but certainly even some ticketing systems. We can navigate everything to the correct screen, preventing the agent from keying in all the data and navigating 7 screens deep, and then leave the control back to the agent so they can now start the call. But so you've really automated that entire manual sequence. So if you remember, I spoke about the fact that it's that 80% efficiency happening in the first 20% of the call. That's what we're trying to address here and get that out of the way through automation. Now, by way of example, let's just look at an actual use case that I can actually show you. This was a fairly complex support group. It was a bill inquiry group for an insurance company. And what happens is the insurance company bills you in a billing period, might be 3 months or 6 months. Inevitably, the premium changes and the customer is confused at why their premium for this bill is different for the previous period of insurance. And so they will phone into the bill inquiry group, and they're going to question, hey, why is my premium changed? Why has it gone up? And for the agent to resolve that question, they basically have to bring up the previous bill and the current bill and try and determine what changed in the customer profile and why the premium changed. Now, bringing up all this information is surprisingly tricky, in that the agent has to navigate in and out of the system to pull up both bills, and effectively write down the changes that they note between the 2 bills. And this is because the billing system only happens to support 1 bill at a time. So it's a lot of complex navigation in and out, choosing different billing periods to try and bring up the information of both bills, so that you can then start resolving the customer inquiry by noting what has changed between the 2 bills. And all of this has to be done before the call can happen. So once again, the 80-20 rule strikes again. That's a lot of work that happens before we can even talk to the customer. And the total handle time for this call was around 7 to 8 minutes. And so the solution was exactly what I mentioned here, is to automate this process and then give control back to the agent. So let's take a look at how that looked. So I'm going to bring this up. Now, here is the system that they use. Now, towards the end of this presentation, we'll start looking at systems such as Zendesk and things that many of you are using. But let's take a look what happened. Now, because it's automated, you don't see that much, and that's sort of the point. But you'll get a sense of how many screens are being navigated when that call comes in. And this is, it's automated. It's not the agent typing this in. So everything you see now is actually the software that's going to automate it. So the way it works, of course, is we're going to have that incoming call, maybe using a via 1X, etc. So that call comes in, and now the system is going to automatically navigate through a number of screens, and it's going through much faster than what an agent or a human could actually do it. And you can see a lot of navigation. Let me just pause for a second. On WebEx, sometimes the frame rates drop and you might not see all the screens, but you'll see it navigates through a bunch of screens, which all of this would have to be done manually previously. And then ultimately, when it's finished, we'll present the two bills side by side, and they can see what changed between the two bills and be able to describe to the customer what changed and why the premium changed. And so this might look remarkably sort of simple, and that's really the point. It is kind of simple. That's a lot of screen navigation you have to go through on a manually. It just makes sense to automate it, and that's what this does. We automate that entire incoming sequence, and then we give control back to the agent with the screen at the right place, and the person can start typing in their data. So it's much, much quicker. And what happened with that? So let's take a look. Retrieving both bills and displaying them side by side, it really reduced it to 2 screens that the agent has to use, and we have a 2 to 3 minute average handle time. If I go back, you remember it was 7 to 8 minutes average handle time before, and just automating that incoming sequence, that drops it to about 2 to 3 minutes average handle time. So you can see tremendous savings by taking that kind of complex start of call process and automating it. So very, very easy to see how the ROI very quickly presents itself by doing that automation. Now, how do you do that? Here's the good news. Really, it's just a small software component that you install on your agent desktop, and it will, as I mentioned earlier, sort of monitor for that screen pop, wait for that screen pop to occur, and then integrate with your ticketing or CRM system or your billing system, whatever applications you have on your desktop. But here's the key point. It does not require any modification to those desktop applications. And we know this is a constraint many of us operate under in the contact center. We have all these applications on the desktop. We don't have, the source code. We don't have APIs, or we might not have the luxury of doing any modifications. This is completely what we call non-invasive. It doesn't require any modification to those desktop applications. We will just use them on the desktop as if the agent were using them on the desktop. So as you saw in that little video, you'd actually see the screens going by with the right data being entered, and then leaving control back to the agent. So it's purely a software solution, and it's totally non-invasive. You can use your existing infrastructure, which often leads to the natural question, will it work with my ticketing system? And really, we work with all the ticketing and CRM systems, whether you're using Zendesk, maybe Remedy, BMC, Freshdesk, you've got your own CRM, Salesforce, SAP, or maybe it's homegrown systems. It's an old Java or web-based system, even old host system. It really doesn't matter what you have on your desktop. We can actually interact with those and integrate with those. So whether you're pulling out record out of Salesforce and then trying to enter it into Zendesk and then switching over to your old host mainframe billing system, all of that can be integrated just as I sort of described at the start of this webinar. It really doesn't matter what technology you have on your desktop. So that I hope gives you a sense of that start of call, that 80% of inefficiency that happens in the first 20% of the call, and that's now probably a good transition point to look at. Okay, we've solved 20 seconds minimum, or an example I showed you, almost 5 minutes. That was all at the start of the call. Let's take a look a little bit at what we can do as well in the during the call segment. So we've made efficiencies at the start of the call. Let's now look at the during call segment. And the problem with this part of it is, and I think it's kind of clear that we automate and make the start of call efficient. The trick or issue that you get into with this during call segment is the fact that support tickets are becoming increasingly complicated, and agents these days need to really understand complex product configurations. They have to do technical troubleshooting and multi-vendor solutions. Sometimes your customer might phone in to say their phone isn't working. In the meantime, it's a third-party application on the phone that they're having issues with. So your agents are really needing to become pretty adept at complex environments, and also increasingly sort of regulatory and compliance requirements. And it's just a very complicated process now to resolve many of these sort of customer support inquiries. And the agents lack the right information at the right time, and that kind of ties into having to go to multiple systems to understand what does this customer actually have, what products do they have, what services have they subscribed to, and so forth. So a lot of it is lacking the right information at the right time, which obviously causes very frustrated agents and a backlog of open tickets and unhappy customers. So what we propose for the during the call segment is less about automation, which you saw at the start of the call, but actually providing guidance. And this is guidance as to how to most efficiently and effectively handle that kind of ticket. And what ticket guidance does is it embeds agent guidance and scripting directly within Zendesk or your ticketing system, both before and while working on a ticket. So what is agent guidance? Really what we're saying is your agents are going to be guided step by step on how to efficiently manage this ticket. If it's a technical troubleshooting call, we'll walk them through the appropriate steps to do that initial triage, or we will walk them through the steps to understand who the ticket should be assigned to. So really what we want to do is, by providing this guidance to the agent, is give them a far more efficient work process, and moreover, really giving them an increase in resolving the issue correctly the first time. So if you're being measured on FCR or first call resolution, adding this kind of guidance certainly improves that first call resolution metric as well, in addition to, of course, solving and shortening call times. To give you a sense of what it looks like before I show it to you, you have the ticket that you're working with, and if you're a Zendesk user, this will look familiar to you. You're working on the ticket, it's sort of in this middle panel. And then ticket guidance is running on a panel here on the right-hand side. We will actually guide the agent through some information and processes, and I'll give you better examples of that. Here's a good example of, this might be a technical troubleshooting, and on the right-hand side here, you can see some guidance being given to the agent where we're driving him or her through the call in a manner that's most efficiently going to figure out what to do with this ticket. So here we're asking, does the cable modem and computer have electrical power? You can say yes and then click next, and then we'll say, is it connected to a computer or a router, etc. So we walk the agent on how to troubleshoot this issue that the customer is phoning about and give them that step-by-step guidance. And again, when you've got increasingly complicated support environments, this step-by-step guidance can really do wonders for introducing efficiencies into that process. You can go in reverse. You can also update your ticketing system from the guidance. And a great example of that might be you walk through the ticketing, the guidance to do that triage, and then you can update the ticket to say, I've walked the customer through the following steps, automatically put all the steps you've done in the ticket, and then assign the ticket perhaps to level 2 support. So you can certainly have your agent guidance interact with your ticketing system to update the ticketing system, route the tickets to the right place, and attach a detailed log of everything that's been done, so the level 2 engineer is not trying to do everything over that the level 1 engineer already did. So it's kind of bidirectional. The ticketing system can run agent guidance, and the agent guidance can update your ticketing system. And of course, my screenshots here are from Zendesk, but certainly that can work for most any ticketing system. And let me show you how that would look as well. Pause there, maximize this. So what you're seeing is logging into Zendesk right now, and you can see a new icon there, which is ticket guidance. And again, this can work for really any ticketing system. I'm just showing it to you integrated within Zendesk. But here you can see the agent selected the ticket guidance, and this is now sort of doing that initial triage, and we're presenting them a couple of options here. Is this about bill inquiry, general inquiry, house move, tech support, etc. So the agent can select what the issue is about. And now we're walking them through guidance. So it really isn't touching your ticketing system yet. We're going to collect customer name and email. So we're forcing your agent to collect the right data from your customers before even proceeding, and then they can click next to see what they should do next. now we're asking them, okay, choose what type of classification this customer query is about. And this is a modem or internet connectivity issue. So we walk them through a couple of troubleshooting steps. Is the device powered? We ask the customer to check the light switch, see if the power adapter is connected. Is it powered? So we say, yes, it is powered. Now we ask them to check if there's an error code. And, is there an error code? We can say yes. Then we can ask for the error code. So, of course, all of this information can be attached to the ticket. And we pause there for a second. So we opened a ticket now. So this is the agent guidance talking back to your ticketing system. We open a ticket. We assign it to a member of the engineering team, and we put all those initial triage information attached to the ticket, so when the engineer gets it, they can see what's been done and what needs to be done. Slightly trivialized example there, but you can see how you can add a lot of guidance and make sure that you collect the email address and all the current update contact information, and just have a better ticket creating process overall. Now, of course, what you can do is, if you're already working on a ticket, let's show you an example of sort of in-ticket guidance. That was guidance prior to creating a ticket. Let's look at a working and open ticket. So here we have a ticket open, and on the right-hand side, we can see the ticket guidance again. So here's where the little script will run to guide the agent, and we present some information about the customer over here as well. And this could even be information, maybe from your CRM system or billing system, to show that the customer is current on support and what the SLA might be, etc. So as they're working on this ticket now, we tell them that they require a 4-hour SLA. And now the agents can just kind of click next and work their way through this ticket, being guided as how to resolve this ticket. So the first thing we ask is, we're saying, is there a network failure? No. Please check the billing system for paid invoices. Yes. Checking billing information if it was not, if it was current. It says that provisioning is required. So there's a great example of how we can tie into your third-party systems and do an automated provisioning, for example. So the guidance can interact and call APIs and do, a hard modem reset or auto provisioning, and then we can see if it's now successful, and then update the ticket with the result. But all of, if you don't have ticket guidance, the before picture really is the agent kind of scrambling and left to their own heuristics and information in their head on how to resolve this ticket. And maybe they forget to sort of check some things on back-end systems, or check that the account is current, or not realize that if the account was delinquent in the last 30 days, it would have deactivated service and has to be re-provisioned. It's just a bunch of business rules that your agents have to sort of memorize, that you can add it now within this guidance and just provide that guidance directly within your ticketing system. So I hope that gives you a sense of how guidance works. Now, the way you create that guidance is you use it sort of with this Graphical Designer, where it's your business level or subject matter experts that can create that ticket guidance. And here's just an example of one example of setting up autopay in a bank. But you create these interactions in this sort of very graphical, business-friendly environment. The right-hand side here shows you a little preview of what the guidance would look like. And then you publish it directly to Zendesk or your ticketing system. And then next time a call comes in, your agents can be guided through that ticket. And when you do this ticket guidance, of course, I think that the results or the benefits of guidance is somewhat self-obvious. But there's a lot of additional benefits when you get into the analytics of this, because now you can start understanding, most of my agents for this call type are going down this path, or agents are taking a long time to get past this particular step in my troubleshooting guidance or my customer care guidance. Why is that? You can drill down and understand why is it taking 28 seconds to get through that specific step of resolving the ticket. Or perhaps you can see, 60% of my escalations are happening for this call type on this node. What is specific about that step in the ticket process that's causing the escalations? So you can drill down, make improvements, change the interaction, and then publish it back out to your ticketing system to see if that improves and actually gets better And it's perfect for kind of continuous improvement processes when you do that. Now, I have showed it here with Zendesk, and the reason I'm showing it with Zendesk is simply from the fact that we are a Zendesk app as well that you can get in the Zendesk App Store and directly publish it into your Zendesk environment. But certainly if you don't have Zendesk, we will absolutely work with whatever ticketing or CRM system you need. It's not just about ticketing. It really is any kind of applications your agent has on their desktop where you want to sort of provide them that next best action guidance on top of your existing application. So anytime that you have a complex application on your desktop, you can certainly provide some guidance to make that call process more efficient. And so, if you look at it, we looked at the start of the call. We looked at squeezing seconds or minutes by automating, connecting to your screen pop, navigating and automating that cumbersome part, that 80% of your call right up front. We then looked at adding guidance on efficient ticket resolution. So once you're in the call, let's provide guidance to your agent to resolve that call more efficiently and more quickly. I'm not really going to get into the end of the call, but clearly there's savings to be had here as well. You can auto-disposition your systems. It's common at the end of the call that you have to disposition, your ticketing system or your CRM system. So certainly you can do automatic disposition at the end as well, and that would further save call time. But really just by looking at start of call and during call, you can drive massive efficiencies there. And most of those efficiencies can come in right there just at the start of the call. So there's really almost no reason to try and improve and inject some efficiencies in that start of call process. And I think the benefits are somewhat self-obvious. Much of this is about lowering average handle time. Many of us, as I mentioned, we measured by seconds on the call, and just squeezing some call time here is very easy to get a quick ROI. The ticket guidance you will find dramatically improves first call resolution, because if I'm telling your agents or guiding your agents how to best handle this call type and what the next thing is they should do, make sure they check the billing system and really guide them in the proper way of resolving a ticket, you're going to find first call resolution improves tremendously as well. And we've seen cases where simply giving this to level 1 engineers, providing them some guidance, has reduced call escalations by over 50%, meaning that they've reduced level 1 to level 2 support calls by over 50%. And we have a great case study on that for anybody who's interested and wants to find out more about that. And then ultimately, of course, there is improving customer satisfaction, which no doubt is important. But I know for many of us, we have to talk ROI numbers. So really what you're going to find the ROI is predominantly coming from average handle time savings, improved first call resolution, and also dramatically reduced agent training times. When you provide the guidance to the agent and you're really providing that next best action and automating the navigation and that start of call process, the agent can now focus on the customer versus focusing on the systems and the complex business rules. So you're going to find it's not just a better customer experience, but your agent training time is going to dramatically get reduced as well, because you've really simplified a lot of that inherent complexity in trying to, sort of how do you handle all these multitude of different ticket types. Just a little bit, about Jacada. We do have offices around the world, as well as customers deployed, really worldwide. Our headquarters here in Atlanta, Georgia. And then multiple offices again around the world, and we've done these type of automation technology really for a good sector across all industries and verticals. Many logos you might recognize, and of course many more. We've been doing this for over 20 years, and it's just really quite remarkable and satisfying when you can go into a customer site and analyze that start of call process and during call process and just see the tremendous savings you can get without actually, disrupting your workflow. You're not changing the applications or installing, new applications or removing your CRM system. It really is just working on your existing CRM system. And if this is something that you think you'd like to explore, certainly feel free to reach out to us to, and of course look at other types of solutions that do the same type of thing. But we'd be happy to give you a demonstration, or even if you want to experience it on your systems to see how it works on your ticketing system or CRM system, certainly contact us, because we would love to work with you and show you how you could drive those same kind of efficiencies that you saw here, or in that one use case where I showed you how we took 8 minutes down to 2 minutes. Really certainly a tremendous ROI for that. So like I said, it would be a quick webinar to get you on your day. We do have a couple of questions, and so I'd like to turn this over to Lee for question moderation.
Okay, thank you, Chris, for your valuable insights on adding a screen pop to your ticketing system. Due to the high participation in this webinar, we're going to answer as many questions as we can from the Q&A window, and the remaining questions will be responded to individually after the event. We'll now go to the Q&A window. Now, Chris, I have some questions already pulled from the Q&A window, but if you see some you want to answer, please feel free to interrupt and pick some questions so we can choose a few and then respond to the rest later on. I'll go to the first one. There's actually several questions that surround this topic. They're asking basically about the pricing structure for this.
Okay, great. Yeah, it's priced on a per agent seat basis. So if you have 500 agents in your contact center, you want all of them to have this automation or guidance technology, it would be priced on a per agent seat basis. So pretty simple and easy pricing structure.
Okay.
And Lee, I see, I'm also just reading the Q&A window. I see someone asking whether it works on Cisco, UCCX, Finesse. Yeah, absolutely. And for some of the other questions, so Cisco, Avaya, and Genesis, we will easily connect to any of those three.
Okay, great. Another question I see here says, what happens if the systems are modified? Do we need to go back to Jacada if they modify their system?
No, system changes are inevitable. We understand the applications on your desktop are going to change. So you're in control of that guidance and the scripts. I showed you that Graphical Designer. You can certainly modify it. You can absolutely contact us if you need assistance, but you become sort of in charge and own and control your own interactions and guidance. So if your systems change, you can just update your guidance and your scripts to take care of that. I'm just scanning the questions here as well. It says, one question is, what kind of integration mechanism is used, or how is data retrieved from Zendesk or any ticketing software? So it really depends, and I hate answering with it depends. If your system has a nice API exposed, if it's a modern day system that has good web services or REST-based calls, we'll absolutely use those. But the nice thing is, even if there is no API, we can still utilize it and retrieve it. And in the video I showed you, it was a custom homegrown application. So we did, through the user interface layer, we integrated directly with that ticketing system on the agent desktop. So, it's a preference to use an API, but, honestly, in 60–70% of the cases, we see there is no API. And this technology, that's one of its key things, is being able to non-invasively integrate with those applications on the desktop by going through the user interface layer.
Okay. I think you may have already answered this one in some form or fashion, but there's a couple of questions asking about working with other platforms outside of Zendesk.
Yeah, and I somewhat apologize that my demonstration and slides were very Zendesk-centric, and that's only because we do have a very tight partnership and agreement with Zendesk, but absolutely, I would venture to say that the bulk of our implementations are in fact non-Zendesk implementations, only because people have very established and often homegrown ticketing systems. So it really doesn't matter what system you have. Like I said, our technology is non-invasive integration, so we'll be able to integrate it with it, and we can certainly demonstrate that to you working on your actual system.
So does that go for any CTI server?
Yeah, for the most part, any CTI server, of course, the big name servers, as well as some smaller unknown ones, but happy to talk to on an individual basis just to show you how we might be able to work in your environment. I'm also looking at a question that says, how does the software on the agent desktop decide the interaction context in order to get to the correct final CRM ticket or system page. So there's really, it's those there's the guidance on that script authoring tool I showed you, where you create the scripts and the guidance, and you can say, first go to the billing system to bring up the customer and then retrieve their support entitlement contract, then switch over to the ticketing system and type in the ticket number. You really sort of describe the process within that designer so that when the call does come in, the process is sort of pre-coded and tells the software how to manage that ticket type for that call type and which systems they need to go to.
Okay. Well, Chris, I just have one more question I want to try to fit in, unless you have something else that you want to pick. Our time is running short here.
Go ahead, Lee.
Okay. So the last question for today will be, it seems clear that you can navigate and retrieve data, but what about doing the opposite at the end of the call, that is, saving or dispositioning a call?
Yeah, and that's great. And, you know, I focused on start of call and during call, but certainly there are savings to be had at end of call. We do see some environments where before the agent can take the next call, you know, the terminology being after call work, they have to, you know, disposition a few systems, update ticketing, etc. So certainly we can automate that. Just as you saw the automation at the beginning of the call, we can automate the disposition at the end of the call, and you can get some additional savings there as well if you're really looking to squeeze some more seconds out of your call.
Okay, great. Well, this concludes our webinar on adding Screen Pop to your ticketing system. Thanks again to Chris Dutoy, Executive Director of Product Marketing here at Jacada. If there are any other questions that we were unable to answer during today's session, we will definitely respond back to you directly after the event. We hope that you have gained valuable insight into adding a Screen Pop to your ticketing system and how easily you can utilize it to enhance your organization's customer service. A replay of the event will be available soon on Jacada.com. And if you would like a copy of today's slide decks, please contact me directly at ljudge@Jacada.com. That's LJUDGE @Jacada.com. Again, thank you for attending today. Please visit us again at Jacada.com and have a wonderful day.